Good morning and welcome. I am Dean Miller, the President and CEO of PACT, off camera en route to an in-person meeting, but here to introduce our Technology Executive Roundtable, which, as you know, is a long-standing series highlighting topics very focused on issues, technology, etc., affecting enterprises, startups, and the like. This one is virtual. As you know, more and more of what we do is in person. Our last Technology Executive Roundtable is in person as SEI, and we will certainly have more in person as well. I'm really excited about today's program and hearing from our wonderful panel. Before I hand it over to our moderator, just as a reminder, you're all on mute. You're able to communicate and ask questions. Please use chat to do so. And we will make sure that in the Q&A portion of this, we get to those questions. Without further ado, I'd like to first of all thank and recognize our sponsors. We could not do what we do without the support of some amazing organizations, including Amatech, Boomi, Comcast Business, Mindcracker, RSM, SEI, and Vanguard. And with that, I would like to introduce our moderator for the day, someone who is no stranger to PACT nor our technology community. Charlton Monsanto is one of the founders of Liquid Hub, an organization you would certainly know that was sold several years ago to Capgemini, where Charlton continues to serve in a senior level as Executive Vice President of Digital Customer Experience. Charlton, it's great to see you this morning. Welcome, and thank you for leading our conversation.
Thank you, Dean. Appreciate the introduction. Thank you very much to the PACT team for recommending me to be the moderator this morning. Wanted to also say thank you to Alan Frank for recommending that, and also recommending and promoting and coming up with some of the questions that we're going to go through today. We have a powerhouse of people here on the team that are going to talk about Web 3.0. Demystifying the term, defining what it really is, defining what really are the opportunities, the challenges, but also the long-term horizon on how applicable is this technology to real business, consumer, and industry type of use cases. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mike, Steve, Mahesh, and Shell. Mike, do you want to go and introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Charlton. Thanks for having me on the panel today. So Mike Buob, I've been with Capgemini over 19 years, and I lead kind of what we call our experience and innovation group for North America. Covers everything from strategy to design to building these immersive experiences, and definitely, you know, the whole Web3 kind of Metaverse space has been of interest with many of our clients across industries over, I'd say, the last year. Thanks to Mark Zuckerberg changing the name of Facebook to Meta. So we have a point of view, and we're actually advising clients today on their Web3 and Metaverse strategy. Thanks, Charlton.
Go ahead, sir. Guys, just keep introducing yourself. Steve, go ahead.
Sorry, everybody, I was muted. My name is Stephen McKean, also known as Mac. I'm the CEO of MacGyver Tech and Mac Nerd. I've been in IT and software for 25 years. I'm an ethical hacker, like doing stuff that others haven't done. Our company primarily, MacGyver Tech, is a software development company. Been in the blockchain space for about 8 years, doing all kinds of smart, cool stuff. Primarily in the last year or so, doing a lot more smart contract development. Generally like to do stuff that others haven't done. We're very security minded. We're part of the FBI InfoGuard, and we work in cybercrime in the area of cryptocurrencies and blockchain as well. So thanks a lot. Appreciate being here.
Thank you, Charlton, for having me. My name is Mahesh Chan. I'm a CEO of Mindcracker. Been running Mindcracker for past 20 years or so. I'm also former Microsoft Regional Director, 14 times MEP. Yeah, I've been working with Web3. Now it's calling Web3. Before that was blockchain. Blockchain, I've been working also for almost 2016. I got into that. And yes, it looks like past few years, we've been working with a couple of clients already building and launching products on Web3. And I'm here to share my whatever I can talk about some of my experience.
Great. Thank you. Hi. I just want to let you know I'm paying for this. This is not natural. All right. Just so that's clear. So I'm a co-founder and CEO of Sharp Platform. We help communities and brands migrate from Web 2 to Web 3. Before that, I was a co-founder of ING Direct, and most recently helped Fortune 500 companies become more innovative and entrepreneurial by spinning up internal AI factories and digital factories. I volunteer at my local STEM academy quite a bit, but as important, I love to cook exotic food, and my favorite is roasted bone marrow. Definitely top 3 in town. I'll put 3 Doge coins on that. Look forward to share and learn.
Looking forward to a dinner with you next. How are you? You doing good? Shell? Good.
Yes, that's a deal.
Okay, so why don't we just go ahead and start and talk about that demystifying of the term Web 3.0. And I think the first thing we should do is think about what is that definition, right? When you look at what Gartner, Forrester say, this is one of those emerging technologies that CTOs, CIOs, CEOs have to pay attention to. And pay attention to means making sure that in their industry, what's the relevance, what are the actual use cases that it applies to, right? And so today, what we're doing is demystifying it because there's a lot of hype around it, of course. It gets tied to, of course, the metaverse. It gets tied to all things immersive, right? And so what are the differences between those different terms? And how do we simplify the notion and the definition so that we can actually use it right when we do our planning, our strategy from an IT perspective? So I'm going to start with my friend Mike Buob first and say, Mike, I know you love this technology. I know you're passionate about it. And I think the audience will see that today. Mike, how would you define Web 3.0? And actually, I would add a little bit to that question to say, how would you not have it be compared to Web 2.0 and Web 2.5, which is another thing that I know gets you going, right? Yeah. So I had to plug that in there so I can get your passion boiling.
All right. Yeah. So thanks, Charlton. So you know, if you kind of ask how it relates to Web 2, right? So in kind of the era that we're in today. So I'll jump back and I'll kind of date myself here. If we kind of look back at like Web 1, right? That was those early days of the internet. You know, that was really, I'd say, kind of the read only, right? People were just consuming content, right? Articles, you know, message boards, and then and that Web 2 is really, I'd say, where kind of like a more of that read write, right? So that's where the social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and others kind of became very popular. And so if we look at Web 3, I think it's where it's all those things, but then you're also going to be able to own your own data, right? So Web 3 is around ownership, because you know the Facebooks and Instagrams and others of the world, right? They made billions off your data, right? And so I think with Web 3, right, being decentralized and not one company owning these platforms, right, it's where you're going to be able to take back control of your data. And I'll let others kind of, add to that or chime in with their thoughts.
Thank you, Mike. So, Shell, what do you think about that? And would you add anything to that point of view? Is Shell muted?
Yes, mute.
So yeah, sorry. So obviously agree it's a creator economy. So why do you need to understand the potential? Well, McKinsey, I think 2 weeks ago, they estimated Metaverse to be a $5 trillion economy in 7 years. Just for size, that is Japan's GDP. Now, are they right? I don't know, but that's what they put out there. So you know, then we can break down tokens and NFTs and blockchain and metaverse, but maybe we can dissect that over time here. But if you want to visualize the size of these, the way I try to explain it is, crypto is basically the size of Philadelphia. Blockchain is the size of the mid-Atlantic. Web 3 is United States, and the metaverse is the galaxy. It's unlimited. So that's kind of in terms of trying to understand the size portions. And then, in terms of, is this important to you? Well, United Nations, as an example, starting at a high level, global level, they're using gaming to teach teens about climate change, right? Gucci announced their CEO of the Metaverse last quarter, right? So innovation is happening, at every layer of this, and with the combination of AI on top of it, it's simply mind-blowing. By the way, the logo that you see, that is something we generated here as a team last night in 2 minutes on Midjourney, right? Using Web3 and design a new logo for Pact as a script. And this is what you can do in a couple of minutes. So, so I think what the market needs is education about user experience, about all of this, because frankly, 2 years ago, I didn't know every detail of this, and I still don't, but I know enough about each of the technology layers. And lastly, I think gaming is probably a segment, if you're in that industry, and fashion, those are two amazing trends happening right now. So if that's your space, get in on that.
Thank you, Shell. Appreciate that. And absolutely, the user experience of this, the customer experience, but also the employee experience that goes with all these technologies is going to be critical, and of course, critical to adoption, right? So when it comes to the current time and the maturity of each of the key technology components of Web3, NFTs, blockchain, crypto, of course, as Mike said, it's a decentralized type of component and an internet. What do you think about the maturity right now? And what's your outlook on when this actually becomes something where there's true ROI for enterprises? As a CEO, a CTO, CIO, thinking about this and wanting to experiment, what's your thought on maturity and when to start to really, truly, meaningfully invest in this?
For me?
This would be Shell, yes. Okay.
So, well, if a $5 trillion economic tsunami coming at us is not enough, perhaps you care about your customers, employees, and maybe even profits, right? So I tend to view blockchain on par with cloud computing in terms of a critical infrastructure technology. So if you peel the layers of blockchain, without going too technical, layer 1, think of it as an operating system, Ethereum. Layer 2, think of it as middleware, right? Different protocols like Polygon. Layer 3, right, is user level, call it your application, gaming, wallets, Animoca. So you take that and then say, okay, where's it at and what's the business impact? Crypto, as an example, if we look at Web3, crypto, it's definitely taken one on the chin. So you can compare crypto to Dallas. It's at the bottom of the whole list, okay? So so that's crypto, but I think consensus right now is that the bad actors are flushed out of the system, right? I think that's what's happening, and only the builders are left, right? So I think that's a fair statement. But on the bright side of crypto, Alchemy, which is probably one of the more recognized Web3 dev platforms with tools for the apps, they said that last quarter, 453% increase they saw in full-time developers in Web3. Now, that is not a small number, and that's what they saw from previous quarter. In terms of NFTs, I think that's a session in itself, but if it doesn't have any utility, what is it good for, right? So clearly the digital art segment appears to have seen better days, but when it comes to collectibles, as an example, you can ask Nike, right? They pulled in $180 million last year in digital collectibles. And oh yeah, Bob Iger, he just said that he thinks the next wave for Walt Disney is NFTs. And someone can correct me here in chat, but I think their stock increased 300 million plus within 48 hours of him announcing that. So, but then if you summarize it and take Web3 as a whole, where are we, right? On the business impact. Again, I would think cloud, whether you get a 10-year contract with AWS, Azure, or go to a hybrid cloud model, the opportunity in Web3 is 100x of that. And the reason is the cloud providers should be offering you Web3 services. So that should perhaps be your go-to playground for this technology. But hopefully you can also look to us as startups and use the local ecosystem and help you accelerate that effort.
Thank you, Shell. Appreciate that. Thanks for that perspective. Mahesh, any thoughts on this that you would like to add to Shell's point of view?
Yes, so I think Shell covered really well. Couple of things I would like to add here as from enterprise perspective, right? So when you think of enterprise, even though now we are moving to cloud, or we have already migrated to cloud, but we still use, services. We still use Windows applications. We still use web applications and so on and so forth. So if I'm a large, enterprise, blockchain and Web3 should be part of one of my tools, or weapons in my arsenal, right? That's how it is. Not everything is going to move to Web3 on day one. It's probably going to move in the next 15 years. Like, we are still migrating to cloud, and it's been what, 20 years? So it's not something like, oh, Web3 will replace Web2. It's like, look at, every enterprise today uses a third-party identity solution, right? Nobody builds their own solutions anymore. Similar way, you have to, as a business, you have to think, okay, what application or what part of my business can utilize this Web3, one of the components of Web3. It doesn't matter if it's a blockchain, or is it Metaverse, or is it a semantic web, and so on and so forth. So to me, they should at least start creating or thinking about building POCs, right? But yes, to me, blockchain is going to add a lot of, something has been missing from businesses, that is trust and transparency. And as I think Steve said it right, the data is a big challenge, not only the size, but data ownership, right? Who owns the data, who controls the data, and how consumers consume the data, especially Gen Z and millennials, right? So they think differently. So when they think differently, that has to be part of your strategy as a CIO or CTO, how my Gen Z or millennial consumers are going to think about as a company. And that's where it comes to, like, oh, by the way, we are also using blockchain for this portion of our data management. So it brings a little bit trust and transparency in those terms.
Thank you, Mahesh. I appreciate that added perspective on what Shell was saying. Nice build on that. So in terms of, and you went down the enterprise route for a little bit and wanted to expand on that. In terms of the marketing, customer and field service, HR, training, engineering, production. So some of these critical industrial enterprise types of functions. What are some immediate use cases that you see today where this is something that, again, CXOs need to look at and start to invest in?
Yeah, it's funny you ask about HR, and this is because we are working on an application right now. And I'll give you my background, right? I've been a programmer for life. I started programming in 97, and so came from India to the US, and I have done the same way. A lot of developers do that, and I think we just saw recently one of our congressmen, he has lied on his resume or his experience where he worked, right? So when you think of HR in recruiting, one of the big challenges, even I face that, is that you just don't know what's truth on the resume, right? Number one, what are the skill set? Was it this person's experience? We do right unless you go and verify that. So there's a background checks, right? So imagine we can use blockchain-based systems for that purpose. So we are actually right now building a product on C# Corner, which is a community of our largest software developers. So all your experience, your community involvement, and your resume, it will all go on blockchain, and also your achievements, your certifications, your badges. Now, if I'm a hiring manager, I see that, okay, this is built on resume, it's verified on blockchain. I can now somewhat trust this more than anybody else, right? Because I know this data has been verified before it was put in there. So that's one part, is obviously HR can think of. Second is like payrolls, and anywhere there's financial transactions are. Wherever you see that there's can be questions about financial transactions that all can be moved to blockchain. Then there's nobody there is going to come and question the business that, hey, how come this payment went to this person, or how come this person got this bonus, how come when this happened, because there's no manipulation there. So that's one, I can go on so on and so forth all day on these things. That's one part. And look at the marketing, right? Marketing is more about, attracting these, customers and consumers. And as Shell mentioned, Nike made $185 on just their, these crypto kicks. It's not, and it's not even about the cool thing. It's not about, oh, how cool we are. Look, we are buying NFTs and I'm owning these shoes. It's really more about the next generation, how they think, how they believe. Gen Z, when we grew up, and we thought different way. Our thought was, okay, build the business, make the money, where the, how to, buy, have this American dream and so on and so forth. But our kids, even millennials, their thought process is, okay, that's great. Our parents did that. We need to think about how we are a part of bigger vision, bigger society, how we are part of this world getting better. So they first, then so many surveys already say that the next generation is looking for companies, they provide sustainability, they look for, building a better world. The project, even the young generation wants to work on projects where they feel like they are contributing something to society. So if you combine all those factors, that's where Web3 plays a major role, right? And in this, I'll give you a perfect example. We are working with the water company in Philadelphia, right? Big, large client, enterprise. They want to build an app. They want to build an app where they can teach the kids, the teenagers, about the water and what the planet, how they can start saving water now. Imagine you have a mobile app or AR app. Now it has a gamification in it. As Shell mentioned, gamification is a big deal for us, part of our lives. I mean, not for this panel maybe, but our kids, all they do is game, right? Whatever they do, it has to be game or they're not doing it. So even in education, we have to make them game. So back to this. So we are building an app where we are going to have these rewards and achievements, and they all be digital assets. It doesn't have to be financial transaction, but the way they are, okay, now I'm achieving something to learn that. So that has become a part of our lives already. Thanks to social media, we want to know that anything we are doing, somebody's liking it, somebody's appreciating it, and that's what it is, right? So, and this could apply to any, I mean, we are building a system right now, Web3 system for healthcare industry. Healthcare industry is biggest. To me, I can't, like every doctor you go to, every healthcare system you go to, everywhere you have to enter same information again and again and again. It's duplicate information everywhere, and they all have wrong data about you. So all that could be put on a blockchain, say it could be permissionless, and imagine everybody can just access from one place. Now, I don't have to have all that duplicate data of Mahesh sitting around on these 20 systems. They never talk to each other. So, I mean, let every other people speak on that, but I think, yeah, I can talk on these all day.
Sounds like you could talk all day. Yes, all weekend until 3 o'clock on Sunday, right?
Yeah.
So actually, I wanted to expand more on this particular topic because again, the application of this in an enterprise business context, how CXOs need to think about this is important. And I would love to have Steve, but also Mike comment more on this, and let's do a little bit of double clicking here. Mike, you and I working together, I know that you've been talking to several clients about this. You've done a lot of workshops on this. What's your thought on use cases specifically in certain industries?
Yeah. So if I look again, kind of building upon what Mahesh was talking about, right? If I look at kind of a, an enterprise and kind of consumer example, right? There's a automotive company that is looking to, as a car gets manufactured, right? That there's an NFT, if you will, of that particular, VIN number. And any data coming from that car, right? All that data gets written to the blockchain, right? So if you think if you're a car owner, right, at any time, because that gets written to the blockchain, and so you can see the history of that car, right? Without needing to go to like a Carfax or like trusting somebody. That's again an enterprise use case that I know an automotive company we're working with is looking at. And then another is a global consumer products company. They're also looking at, hey, when we produce a product, right? If we put that on the blockchain, now from a logistics standpoint, someone can see exactly everywhere that this product's been, where the materials have been sourced. And then when it gets into the hands of the consumer, it can drive, other types of experiences. So that's kind of the enterprise side that I'm seeing. And then I'd say on the marketing side. So if you think, in the Web3 world, right, there is, no PII in Web3. So you're going to have to market, right, to an audience in a different way, right? So in Web3, you're a something like a MetaMask wallet, right, which is a crypto wallet, and you're just an address, right? All you know is you address that address. That address gives you access to all these different Web3 sites, and then now how do you market to them, right? Because they only know you as an address, and any interactions you have with that brand, they don't know maybe your gender, where you live, and so how you kind of target those people and how you interact is going to be much differently, right? And in this Web3 space, because I get this question a lot, Charlton, and this kind of pushback in some of these workshops we've done for our clients and their executives is, I guess someone always raise their hand, right? That they say, well, I'm never going to own cryptocurrency. I'm never going to buy an NFT. It's not for me. I get it, right? It's probably not for a majority of kind of this audience, but it's that next generation of customer, right? It's your Gen Z, it's your Gen Alpha, and I think Mahesh said earlier, right? A lot of these folks are growing up gaming, right? So again, if we go back to the kind of the Web 1, Web 2, Web 3 example, like when I was growing up, I socialized with my friends going to the mall and movies on a weekend, right? In middle school and then early high school days. And then that next generation really socialized, if people remember AOL Instant Messenger, that's how they socialized with their friends. This next generation, they're socializing in Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite, right? So that's where that gamification and gaming aspect is going to be pulled in kind of these new experiences that companies and brands deliver.
Thanks. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Steve, what's your thought on this?
Yeah, I mean, I like to take a different twist on it. Some of the companies we work with are like Anheuser-Busch and large distributors, and I see the supply chain really being disrupted, and it's already starting to happen right now with Deloitte and IBM building solutions to help speed that up. And basically, some of the biggest problems is on recalls. Right now, you get a recall on something, it takes days, if not a week, for everything to go through the whole system. On the blockchain, that's minutes. You don't have to worry about tracking things down. The best way to think about it, instead of everybody having a siloed database and say, here's all my inventory, everybody has the inventory in the cloud or up high in the sky. They can see it and access that data really in real time. And it allows to actually manage the supply chain much more effectively and efficiently. And I'm sure you guys already know during COVID, we really exposed some weaknesses in the supply chain as well. So I believe that's really going to be a big area for improvements of efficiencies and also accountability. Another thing too, which I think is really going to play a big piece of it, is immutability of the blockchain. The blockchain, if I'm not sure if everybody understands, is a different type of a database. You can't go ahead and like write a record and say, oh, I made a mistake and then change that. Once it's written in there, it's immortalized in stone. And that allows that to have that basically have a little bit more transparency and fairness. So somebody can't say, oh, I hacked that record and changed it. That doesn't happen with the blockchain. So I think that alone allows for really secure systems. And that's what really Web 3.0 really means, is it's basically at the network layer, we're securing the data. So
hey, Steve,
yep.
if you don't mind, so for my simple brain, immutability, could you double click on that specifically? Because a lot of times when we talk about that word, a lot of people wonder, what does that really mean? Could you just expand a little bit on that? Thank you.
You're absolutely, yeah. Sorry, it's a big word. People not know what it means. So basically what it means is you cannot change it. Once somebody writes that record, say, imagine if I just took this piece of paper right here and I wrote my name on it. That cannot erase it anymore. I can't delete it. I can't change it. Immutability means it's there forever and it can't be changed or modified. Does that help?
It does for me. My simple brain still understands that. So yes, it does for me.
Sure.
So Steve, question. We just talked about a variety of different industries, use cases, functional areas within those industries. Any specific use cases from your perspective and key sectors where you think now this is really becoming relevant, right? And your thoughts on the horizon of innovation and relevance of this going forward.
Sure. I mean, I can speak from experience. Currently, we're building a project right now for a company that's selling vinyl records, which, ironically are making a huge comeback. Last year, 40 million vinyl records were sold and increasing. So I partnered up with a publicly traded company to basically create the digital twin. So when you buy that vinyl record, I'm not sure if everybody understands, when you buy a vinyl record and you start playing it over time, that vinyl record will degrade in the quality, and people like to keep the record and put it on the shelf. So what we've done is combined a digital and physical world by putting a QR code that's on the vinyl record. You scan it, you get to claim your free NFT. You can listen to that endlessly in a digital format without degrading the original one as well. And we're doing it at scale and selling to like Walmart and Barnes and Nobles and large big boxes. So that's a use case currently right now that's I'm part of. So I hope that's a helpful insight on that.
That's a very good one. That's a very good. Thank you. So I guess Mike and Shell, in terms of the word decentralized internet, same thing as immutability, right? A lot of big words, complex words. What do they really mean for us? And so could you double click a little bit on decentralized internet? What does that mean? What's a decentralized app? And I'm sure you'll get passionate about this. Why should we care?
Yeah, so Charles, again, I think of it as no one company owns that data, right? Because when it's decentralized, when something gets written to the blockchain, it's written across multiple nodes, right? So think of a bunch of computers around, right? And those records are getting written to that. So not one company kind of own that. And at any time, anyone can see that blockchain, right, and view those records. Where today everything's still in walled gardens. Right. In Web 2, like a Facebook owns your data. And I know, Charlton, you kind of mentioned the Web 2.5, which, I'm kind of passionate about, because when I hear companies talk about, well, let's do Web 2.5, to me, that tells me they're scared, right? They're scared of giving up control of that data, right? And truly decentralizing it. So don't. You're either Web 2, right, or you're Web 3. When you say you're Web 2.5, it still tells me you want to control that data. So the whole notion of decentralization, right? If you look out there, these decentralized apps, there's like a decentralized version of like YouTube. Actually, there's several YouTube type decentralized apps. There's Twitter decentralized types of apps, Dropbox, and so. In that case, right, like a YouTube's not owning that content, and those content creators, right, they're making money off that content, right? So when they publish a video to one of these decentralized, YouTube type of apps, they're making money, right, but based on people viewing that content. And then the people that are kind of hosting those nodes on the blockchain, right, they're earning tokens for basically using their compute to kind of store some of that data on the blockchain.
Thank you. So I guess, Shell, what's your thought on that? Decentralized and decentralized apps? Because you come from the financial services industry, so it's very applicable there, I think.
Yeah, I'll definitely give you an example. But so basically, for me, it's eliminating friction for the customer, right? Or end user, if you will. And also the middlemen and middlewomen, if you will, right? So then I'll start with what it's not. Right. So I'm not going to mention the name of this bank, but I tried to set up a business account, LLC, 2 weeks ago. I had 3 visits, 2 hours at the branch. And as a former co-founder of ING Direct, where we eliminated paper and went digital 20 years ago, this really hurts. Right. So what is it then? Well, if I were to transfer money, say to my brother in Norway, right? Right now it's 3 days, $75 if the bank allow me to, right? So, well, with a wallet, I can send what I want, when I want, to whoever I want. So there are no Web 2 middlemen, if you will. That's removing friction. Clearly, this is assuming KYC and AML credentialing, right? So, so then some of the obstacles we're facing, though, are pretty big in terms of decentralization to get to Web3 for the larger consumer base. I mean, the scamming, I don't know if that's something we have a topic on later, but the scamming was a $5 billion industry in itself last year, right? And I would argue that that is partly, if not a huge element, related to the poor user experience. If you have a poor user experience, I don't know, did I send it to Mike, or was it Charlton's address? I don't know. I can't, I'm not that smart. I can't verify it. So the user experience, I believe, drives scamming, which is a roadblock for the general consumer. And that gets back to education as the last part, like Mike is doing. He's out educating the corporate clients, right? And you, Charlton, and Mahesh, Steve, and myself, right? So education, that's going to take a while. But anyway, that's decentralization is extremely powerful, but there is a little bit of a bridge we have to.
So Shell, so you went down this path, and I want to expand a little bit about that. We've mentioned the CXOs. We haven't given enough homage yet to the chief security officer. And we know they're watching, right? We know they're out there lurking right now, watching us having this conversation. But so, Mahesh, what's your thought on security implications here?
So this is great because one of my cousin, actually, he is the chief security, vice president of security at one of the largest banks. So we always throw some ideas. So as a CIO, CTO, right, my biggest challenge always is security, and cyber frauds are growing so much in like past 5 years or so. It's just insane. I don't need to explain the numbers, but there's two parts to the security, right? One is data security within the company. That's very important to me because I build the systems. I've been IT. I have access to databases. I create databases. So imagine you are a large corporation and you have 2 DBAs or developers. They have access to database. They're working remotely in other countries. This happens right now. Every company has probably remote workers. They have access to the database. That's actually a live production database of customers, right? What if I am a bad actor and I steal the data? That's a perfect example. How do you secure that? And I think that's where Web3 blockchain can help, definitely. Other part is the size of the data, right? The amount of data we are creating every day is creating every day. It's like in 1 year, we create data double than so far we have created, for many, many years, right? So that's where also a little touch base on that. I think everybody, Shell and Steve covered this on distributed and decentralization. So you look at the history of computer systems, there were like independent laptops, there were desktops, and they're like a client server, and they're like, now we are in a cloud space. Like this era is cloud era. Everybody's going to cloud. But what will happen in, I think, in a few years is the amount of data is going to be so much. It's going to store on these centralized servers. It's going to create problems. That's where you're going to need these distributed and decentralized server, these infrastructures where, okay, I need a file from a server. I don't need to go to, New York server to download that. If I'm sitting in India, I can just download something quickly from my local server, which is there. I don't think these cloud companies will be able to do that because they can only have so many data centers, right? But if you are decentralized and distributed, I can get those files as long as they are synced in the back. I can quickly get from local server or local node, so-called node, right? So these are going to be big challenges coming time, and that's where this blockchain / this decentralization going to help us.
Yep, that makes sense. So I guess, Steve, could you talk to us a little bit about how companies should approach the whole development, testing, trying, the strategy of incorporating some of these emerging digital technologies, crypto technologies, blockchain, Web3 overall as a category in their environments?
Yeah, I mean, well, the first thing I think it's really important to understand is there's a lot going on here. It's extremely fast moving pace. To put it in perspective, the fastest moving technology the world's ever seen before blockchain was the internet, and that grows about 66% year over year. The blockchain grows about 113% year over year in a ferocious pace. It's hard to keep up. So the best thing I can recommend is do not look at the fad of the week. And I heard some cool article on this new blockchain. Do not just jump on that. Do a lot of education, reach out to a lot of people. These are community-based systems. It's a big investment to jump into something like this. This is a little bit of a bleeding edge technology still, but there's a lot of embracing going on for this right now. Just make sure you reach out to professionals that know what they're doing, have a good reputation, and just don't just try to for the first thing you see. And if you have any questions, by all means, reach out to me or anybody here on the panel, and just make sure you really know what you're getting into. These are the secured networks that have a lot of value. It's actually the internet of value instead of information. And it's just a different way of thinking of it. These are really secured networks that are hard. They're really encrypted, and they're sometimes the best way to think about it is security goes counter to ease of use. These are ultra secure systems, so the ease of use sometimes is a little bit more difficult, but that's where the user experience and the technology is going to be developed to make that easier for people in the future, I believe. But that's still, when you get in new technology, you have those wrinkles. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And I guess the question I have there is, and that I'm trying to wrangle with, is you have this trend of techno-nationalism happening, right? Where you have certain countries that are forcing, right, the cloud companies to literally create localized instances of those cloud platforms, right? And then also protecting all of that, while we're also talking here about a decentralized type of interaction and data structure. So I'm listening and watching the two, and I'm wondering, okay, so which one's going to win, right? Because the techno-nationalism, and the last 20 years, it's all been about globalization. But techno-nationalism is something that's happening now, right? We have clients that are coming to us now saying, hey, how do I work with China, who's now forcing us not to use the cloud instance that is in North America, right? What are the implications about that? So I guess anyone on the panel, any thoughts on that?
I might take that a little bit further. How about the network state? Takes it even another step further, where they're creating DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organizations. They can be either a country or a company or any organization that's on the blockchain that's not limited by any bounds, and it can function just as a country or a company. So that's another way of thinking about it too. They're not kind of siloed in your geolocation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, Charles, I can take on that a little bit and then you can jump in, Shell. So as we know that, Charlton, that this is a beginning stage of Web3, right? So just because we see that these public blockchains now, doesn't mean there's not going to be other blockchains. There doesn't mean there's not going to be other protocols. Actually, there's already private blockchains. There are already side chains. There's already, permissionless and permission blockchains, right? So for example, you could create a blockchain like similar to the data, just data go like Azure has government, right? That means it's a separate network. It doesn't mean we cannot build another blockchain. It runs within the China, within their boundaries, right? It doesn't also, we are actually creating a blockchain, working with other blockchain layer 1, creating a layer 2, where this will only serve the data of healthcare companies. That means if you're not a healthcare, it doesn't qualify for that. You cannot join that blockchain. It's not public blockchain. It's a permission/private blockchain. But for example, Penn and then a bunch of these local hospitals in Philadelphia area, they have agreed, they're going to probably use that. They are the only one. They have to be first approved by us, right? By the company that's building it. So there's going to be a lot more innovation coming in the space. Interoperability is already growing. Like now I can convert from one blockchain to other blockchain. Data can move back and forth. That's happening. There's already third party, these products and services are being developed. So there's going to be a lot more in this space. And as problems come, solutions will come, right? That's what we do. When problems come, we will solutions.
Yep.
What do you think, Shell? What do you think of that?
Yeah, well, I was going to add, Ecuador, right? Bitcoin is now a legal tender, right? And you may argue that, okay, well, they're suffering because the price has gone down. That wasn't really the point there. The point is they have it as a legal tender as of last year, right? And then I think globally, though, it will be almost West versus East, or developed country versus others. If you look at Africa, Venezuela, right, China, Vietnam, they're doing health records. So I think because they have to, right? It's like you have to innovate, and this is probably one of the few choices they have. For us in the West, we can say, okay, I want to fork off this because I want to be 2.5 and I'm okay with it, you know, but if you're in Cameroon and running a local hospital, maybe that's not a choice you have, right? So that's what I think. But the last example is in Dubai and United Emirates. I mean, talk about putting everything in the Web3 basket, right? I mean, they have a minister of blockchain. They have a minister of Web3, right? They have committees but more importantly, they put a security and regulatory framework in place that is crystal clear to everyone. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. That's a good conversation there. And again, I think it's an important topic for us to keep watching here. So I guess one of the things I want to do here is share my screen for a minute and show a Forrester. Well, I need to be allowed to do that. But so let me just go ahead and describe what Forrester is saying. In Forrester's top 10 emerging technologies that will go mainstream in 3 phases, specifically when it comes to the return on investment, right? So of course, right now we're still doing cloud, right? I think Mahesh was mentioning that before. We're still doing cloud native computing. We're into natural language processing and really implementing that to get positive ROI, and it continues in the next year. Then after that, you're looking at a 2 to 4 year type time frame, edge intelligence, privacy, intelligent agents, explainable AI. And beyond that, the 5-year plus time frame, they're looking at positive ROI, and that's where they're putting Web 3.0. And that's where they're putting extended reality. I guess what I'm asking the panel is do you agree with that type of time frame? Because if we're thinking about 5+ years, right? A lot of companies right now, this year, they're wondering what's happening in the first half. They're wondering when it comes to the economy, they're worried about the first half and then the second half. What's your thought on time frame here of when these technologies, Web 3.0, really become something where there's a positive ROI because everyone's watching the bottom line? Anyone want to take that on?
I'll jump in real quick. I think it's less than that. I think initially before COVID, I would have said that would have been accurate, but I think we're probably closer to 3 years instead of 5. I think it's been accelerated. It's this, somebody who's been in the space for about 8 years, it's exponentially growing, and it's just like this growing amoeba that gets larger over time. And each iteration or each cycle, like about 4 years or so, it's just really, and I think this next one is really going to be it. So I think about 3 years is where I feel comfortable where it would kind of be provision ROI.
Yeah, and I can add to that.
And
I think the if you look at a little background, the crypto gave it a bad name, right? The crypto gave the blockchain entire, we call it Web3, but since the Web3 name introduced as a blockchain and all these new technologies are part of these, I think it's moving much faster. Now in last, Michelle can agree, there's more and more in the past 6 months, there's more companies are inquiring about, hey, what is Web3? How can we migrate to that, or what can we do here before and jump ahead? So that I've never seen that many inquiries before, like about cloud or about any other technologies. So yeah, we may see a little earlier, and I think the regulations are one thing that will be a big challenge. Is still coming time and figuring those for enterprise will be a little bit slower because there's not too many private and permission blockchains besides IBM Hyperledgers and a couple of them. But I see that many layer 1 blockchains, I work with the Stratus, they already kind of have or building these private chains where a business can take them and run a bunch of nodes to secure their data internally, right, for their customers' data. So this is happening. 3 to 5 sounds like a reasonable time frame.
Okay.
Yeah, can I add?
Shell, please do. Yes, and then Mike, you're next.
I'll give you 2 brands that I think will help accelerate it. Starbucks, right? Let's talk about engagement in Web3. They launched the Odyssey program. And that's really about engaging me as a customer, right? I'm a white mocha Lebanese goat milk junkie, right? As a customer. And they had me at hello, right? With Odyssey, right? So, and that is about user experience at its best, right? And then the other brand that I think will help accelerate it is this little company called Apple, because they are surely building both for AR and VR, because they want to leverage the 1.3 billion iPhones in the market and then create a new category and improve on the VR headset. So I think those two are already helping accelerate the industry. By the way, I think Starbucks had 3.6 million wallets within 10 days.
Shell, did you miss Wawa already? Wawa is already have their reward for loyalty rewards, NFTs.
I'm banned from Wawa.
Oh no. How about Instagram? You guys heard about that? You know, they're going to be using Polygon to print your you know, NFTs right out of Instagram. So I mean, it's getting there.
Yeah.
So Mike, you're the last one for this question. What's your thought on this?
Yeah, I mean, so again, I'll take it, you know, almost a different view, right? I from an ROI, I think that was your initial question, Charlton. I think that you know, the ROI realization, I think we're 5 years, probably more away, 5 to 10 years, right? I'd say the same thing about the metaverse. I think we're a decade away from really what the metaverse now is going to become. Now, having said that, you know, we do encourage clients to start experimenting, right? Don't sit on the sidelines, right? Because, you know, think of back in the early, you know, when everyone was you had a brick and mortar, right? The having a website became an extension of your brand, and then having a mobile app was the next extension of your brand. Kind of a Web3 NFT metaverse is going to be the next extension of your brand. So don't sit on the sidelines, because if we look back when companies were brick and mortar, and around when kind of e-commerce and the web kind of came around, you know, those companies sat on the sideline because it was expensive to, you know, you had to have physical servers, and there wasn't a lot of information on how to build websites and e-commerce and, you know, taking payments. And they let you know, Amazon really determine and dictate what shopping it was going to be on the web, right? So think of where we're at today with how Amazon has just been so dominant. So it's much easier to get in and experiment today, and this, so now you can have a say in what this Web3 NFT metaverse becomes for your company, for your industry. Because if you don't, right, you're going to let someone else dictate it. And we've learned from kind of that Amazon time period that don't let someone else do that. But today it's much, I'd say, cheaper and cost effective, you know, with these, you know, cloud services, software as a services. You can get in and kind of quickly and nimbly stand up some of these experiments and do these kind of launch and learn or test and learn, and actually let your customers, right, let your employees kind of help shape and determine what your Web3 strategy is going to be.
So it seems like you're a little divergent from the previous answers.
Yep. Yeah.
What's your thought on that?
I can add here, Charlton, is that so when it comes to Web 2.5, I think it's already happening. I'll give you an example. We're going to launch, we were supposed to launch in October. We're going to launch this year, this quarter, it's a credentialing app for healthcare providers. And it's on Web 3.0, right? So using blockchain, it's using NFTs. So we create like any healthcare provider, a doctor or a nurse. I want to work for this healthcare system. I can upload my documents and all that. And in the end, once they're approved and verified, you get a credential certificate from that healthcare system. We are building that, putting on a blockchain already, and then we are creating NFT. So if you need to go work on another healthcare system, you go and scan the NFT and verify that, yes, you are allowed to work in this hospital system. So this is going to launch this quarter, actually in 2023. So things are already moving, and this is a real enterprise application. It's not something we are launching for young kids in other countries. So there's already being built systems like this. It's not at the bigger scale.
Sounds like we need to have Forrester be part of the panel next time.
So Charles, can I add something real quick? So
yeah, absolutely.
I meant to mention it. So you know, when Kel mentioned kind of the Starbucks Odyssey program, right? So I think that's a good use case because one, you know, I think Starbucks has, you know, 28 million people are enrolled in their traditional loyalty program. And, I think Starbucks is going to be a way for like kind of the masses to kind of onboard into this Web3, because a lot of people don't know, right? I mean, it's still a frictioned experience. I mean, Nike purchased Artifact, and they just launched a sneaker drop where you had to buy a certain NFT to even be entered into the drawing to even win these crypto kicks, which then get manufactured and shipped to you in June. And I went through this process because I wanted to see what the purchase path was, and it was for someone that knows the space, it was still very friction. But I think Starbucks, again, knowing their brand, right? Their great customer experience, they have a great loyalty program. I think being able to kind of onboard people into Web3, I think that's going to help accelerate more on the masses. And you'll see more come out from companies throughout the next few years.
Thank you, Mike, for that perspective. So I'm watching the chat a little bit, and by the way, I'm also watching the screen here, and I'm seeing a cool logo on the right, and I'm seeing the background with Shell. So getting some good green vibes here.
Go Birds. Is that what it is?
I just wanted to add that as a comment after yours, Mike, specifically given your Bengals affiliation. So a question on the healthcare industry, and I saw Matt Sullivan asked for what the impact would be on the healthcare industry. If I'm a CIO, CTO, any of the executives in the healthcare, thinking about payers, thinking about hospital systems, what are the issues specifically? What are the impacts on the healthcare system when it comes to this? What are the use cases potentially? Maybe we can just brainstorm a little bit about that we can leverage for the healthcare system in general, and also implications, of course, on privacy and personal information. Anyone want to take that on?
Well,
Go ahead, Shal. Yeah.
Well, I can start with a use case, right? I would want my medical records with me and easily accessible, right? As an example, I live, 10 minutes from the Delaware border, right? Okay, if I go to Delaware to a healthcare provider, and then I go back to Pennsylvania, right, next week, guess what? We don't have your record, right? Can't send it. Okay, well, but I'm 10 minutes away. So the use case, at least for me, is I would like to have that with me. Okay, whether it's on a hard wallet or not, that's separate, but that's one simple use case that I'm today dealing with. Okay, so that's my use case.
And I think
we all deal
Shal,
with that, yeah.
Continue on that, Shal, we can discuss a little bit about, we won't disclose the name, you want to talk about that, one of the large company, nonprofit, how they're thinking to utilize, right? They have an idea? No? Okay, I'll give you a little idea. So data privacy is one big challenge, right? We know that in healthcare, and payments are definitely, because and I've been working on a couple of projects, the you won't believe that 15% of your as a customer, 50% of patient, 50% of my money is actually going to these companies. All they do is transfer money from one account to other account. 15%. No wonder our healthcare costs are so high. When you come to Temple or these healthcare systems, they get only 70% of money what they're billing you for. There are so many third parties involved in between, and none of these third parties talk to each other. They're so bad. I think there's a big innovation can happen in that space, and I'm actively working on a couple of part of that. So data privacy, the payment, and the payers. So imagine, I don't know, my son he had a problem with the knee, he had a surgery. It was 2 years ago. I still get those bills. Nobody knows where these bills come from. Nobody knows who's sending what. Imagine this all data and all these transactions all put on a blockchain. It doesn't have to be public blockchain. It could be permission, but then all these parties can access the same data, same transaction, and we can keep the history. Okay, this is the date surgery happened. This is the first payment went to this. Now, this we can consolidate all that. This could solve that. That is a big major issue. And even now, insurance companies and the payers and the patients and everybody can collectively agree on that.
I hope that thank you, Mahesh. Thank you, Shell, for those answers on the healthcare impact. I hope that answers, or at least addresses a little bit what Matt Sullivan was trying to hear about. I wanted to go back to a question or a point, Shell, that you had made about this being the creator economy potential, right? And I guess the question I would say is there are instances now where content that's been created by generated by an AI engine is being scrutinized by others that look at it and go, hey, that's similar to what my original content was, my original sources. And you're seeing some lawsuits starting to happen, right? So there's an intellectual property implication here that perhaps I'd like to get some point of view on that, because that's going to be yet a whole nother industry, right? A whole nother cottage industry is protecting somehow, at least, this notion of content property that you think you used to own being somehow now leveraged by the AI engines to generate new content that then is somehow, for some reason, owned by someone else. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, definitely an emerging. It's like a comet coming at us real quick here, right? And it's a big one, and it's going to hurt, right? I don't have the answer, but 4 years ago, I took a AI strategy class at MIT, and one of the things we took from that class was the need for an AI ethics officer. And we've been telling clients ever since, and I would say out of 50 clients, maybe one has listened. And they actually had it in place. They have had it in place for over a year. Does that solve the problem? Of course not. But at least you have someone at the wheel right now, right, that is in charge and can draft a strategy for that company. So I think that's one thing that everyone needs to consider is a strong AI ethics officer and a legal department to go with it. That's not to punt. I just don't have the, it's so new and fresh that, yeah, there's going to be people hurting on, but on the positive side, it's simply amazing what you can do. So I think if you're a blogger or a creator, right, I think you need to become maybe your new title instead of blogger, maybe your new title is I'm a head of scripting. Right, meaning I know how to do scripts for ChatGPT and Midjourney and Dolly, and maybe you're a scripting pilot. Maybe that's your title. So, yeah, that's my short answer.
Mahesh, what's your thought on this? Steve?
So, well, yeah, the AI officer is called blockchain. Yes, so I agree with that. And I write a lot of code. I write articles. I probably wrote 2,000 articles and programming books. So we actually, I just trademark and building something called code as NFT, because code is always being copied here and there. So our idea is if I'm writing a code, if anybody copies, I can say that they have to pay me royalties, or at least they have to say, this is my ownership, right? So every time anybody downloads the code, same thing with the content. I think blockchain can help that by putting ownership on the, if a real content is being created by me, system then tracks somehow. And then copying is hard. It's, it's AI can copy it, but at least I can go and back and say, hey, look, this is my article. I can show you the proof it was on the blockchain and I'm the original author. Then I can claim. This is pretty much more like it trademarks, right? Trademarks and patents, right? Anybody can copy, but then you have to go to the registry. So there is a digital registry already. Registries are already being created for digital ownership and rights, right? Look at the music industry. They're already using blockchain for putting their content on there. So I think that's what, I don't know exactly if that will help, because how much that will help and how good this AI is. So you cannot say, oh, we took the idea, but it's different content.
What's your thank you, Mahesh. What's your thought on that, Steve?
Steve is mute.
I guess the AI was muting me and didn't want me to talk about it.
Exactly.
That's what was going on there. So I have a good amount of experience with AI as well. My biggest concern with AI is actually the biases. So there's a lot of problems with being too biased in one way or another. It depends on how it's fed. and the person or the people, the team that's feeding that data can really impact the decision-making of that AI engine over time. So there definitely, I agree, as an AI kind of oversight is really needed, but I still think we're figuring that out. We really don't know exactly all the implications. Really, AI from most people's standpoint is a black box. You put something in it, it puts something out. How did it get to that answer? Not everybody really knows exactly what's going on, and they're getting more and more complicated to even figure that out. So, and what really makes the decision? Why did they make this here? Is there a moral implication of this? Not really sure, because the machines are going to try to do things as quickly and efficiently as possible. And sometimes that goes against human nature. So that's just my thought there, just a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It looks like we actually lost Mike from the panel. He dropped here. Mike, are you still there? I don't see him anymore.
No.
So I see a couple of questions coming up in the chat. From Megan is one. What opportunities do you see for proof in context of a digital identity and consumer protection? Do you see any obstacles in adoption? Anyone from the panel wanting to take that on?
I mean, I can add, and I'm working with digital identities and work with a couple of
zero knowledge that is that Megan is emphasizing.
Yeah, so digital identities, right? If you look at I think there's the biggest challenge right now, and I'll start with the challenge, is that this is a new space and there's a learning curve, and systems are so not easy to use, as everybody agrees. That's the biggest challenge and hurdle, right? Second problem could be that a lot of these Web3 systems are still being evolved. They're being evolved. They're finding a lot of problems while they're being tested. So that will continue to go, right? It's not as solid proven as Azure cloud is, or AWS cloud is, or we are using Okta for identity management. So yeah, I mean, it's I forgot the question was, but I think I talk about this.
It's specifically around the zero knowledge proof in a person's identity.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, the biggest challenge I said is being the systems, because even I own my wallet, right? Look at I own my wallet. I supposed to, as a human being, right? We don't want to. The reason we use banks, because once I put my money in there, I can sleep. I know if somebody steals it, I'll get it back. The problem with these Web3, these wallets is, if I lose my key, guess what? I'm screwed. I can't go to a bank or ask for a key. So it's funny, and I laugh when, like, where are you going to put your hard wallet or your key? Like, I'm going to put in a bank locker. So we're still using centralized systems regardless to store the keys. So that's the biggest challenge right now in this industry. But hopefully we'll figure out. Like, I think the biometric is going to play a major role, and Shell mentioned Apple and Tesla and these companies going to come up with something where you don't have to create seed phrase and remember all these things, because that's just too much for average person.
Understood. So one of the questions that I'm looking at here is from Russ, and Russ is asking, in terms of global catastrophic type of risks out there from terrorism, do we know of anyone looking at that and looking to address and or protect us from that?
Yeah, I can jump in. I'm actually a member of the FBI InfoGuard. Our sole purpose is to protect American infrastructure, and we work directly with FBI and FBI cybercrime. So I can tell you, somebody who our company does forensics. People come to us that have been part of scams. We just helped a gentleman had a $1.3 million scam. What we did is we did the forensics. We figured out how to get all the information. And I can tell you what's really awesome about the blockchain technology is the public ledger. Every single transaction that anybody has ever done is on there. And it makes it really easy for us in the forensics world to track down what happened, where it went, and know exactly where everything's gone. So I believe it's actually going to help in some areas for the scamming and counterterrorism and AML, or anti-money laundering, which we deal with as well. So I believe it's really, it's helping by having more traceable systems. And there's companies like Chain Analysis. If you guys haven't heard of them, we know them as well. That basically their whole sole business is to run data analytics on the blockchains.
Yeah, and to add to Steve, I think Microsoft Azure, I saw this 5 years ago as a part of MVP program. Microsoft shared that they have literally hundreds of people working daily just monitoring not only cloud but also Windows and network and everything. And they work direct with the governments, not just the US, but the head. They warn everybody. I think these large companies are already sharing all the data whenever they see. We saw live what country generates how many these activities for attacks, and that was amazing to see. And there's actually a big division, and Microsoft spends millions of dollars every year just on that monitoring these threats.
Well, yeah, I jump in there and tell you, because this is my line of business. We have to try to defend. So basically what's happening is there's a really huge influx of attacking that's happening from China and Russia right now, unprecedented. We are basically at World War III online right now, and they're doing everything they can to compromise American companies and cause harm. So, we're just trying to harden up a lot of these things. Unfortunately, there's a lot of companies that are just leaving things sitting around, leaving ports open and making it really easy for these hackers. But keep in mind, this is not this one system or one company being hacked. This is a whole network. This is a sophisticated thing, like that scam that we just helped this gentleman with the millions of dollars that were scammed. It was China working with AWS, working with this and this. It was literally a labyrinth of multiple companies and all over the planet of different technologies. So this gets pretty sophisticated in what these guys are doing in the cybercrime world, and it's only getting more complicated.
Thank you, Steve. And I think by the way, Russ's question was a layup for you, almost sounds like. So I think you owe him a couple of bucks there on the side.
Okay, yeah, sure. But I'm sorry,
I'm kidding.
I probably went a little too far.
No, I like that.
I'm a nerd. Sorry.
So talking about owing people things, if I'm a regular consumer person thinking about a digital wallet, everyone's talking about digital wallets out there, and I'm thinking, okay, I need one. What's the panel's perspective on which ones are the better ones out there? What's a recommendation? What are the factors to consider a digital wallet, right? So as the right fit for me. Any thoughts on that?
Stay away from centralized exchanges. Try to take your ownership in your own hands. The cool thing about the blockchain is you don't have to have a third party in between you and the blockchain. So I would recommend getting yourself like some hardware wallets, like the Trezor T is one, the Ledger Nano S, and there's a handful of others. That's the ultimate secure way of doing it. If you just want to do it and try it, test out, you can get like some software wallets like the Trust Wallet on your phone. Try to stay away from companies. Because companies can go out of business. Just look what happened with FTX, how quickly that turned out. So, just keep, this technology doesn't need a third party. So just try to use those things that don't need a third party. But on the other side, it does, come with some risk because there's not a firm number you can call somebody if something goes wrong. Just make sure you reach out to people that really know what they're doing. If you have questions, I'd like to make sure people are safe and secure.
Also remember your password, right?
So
your password, do not take a picture of it either. That's a big problem. People go ahead and take a picture of their private key. It gets synced to iCloud, and 3 days later, your account gets hacked. So that is very common. I love it, man. You're like me. I've tried every single one.
So I agree with Steve. If you're trying to get into this crypto space, Ledger wallets are great. They also have an app, comes on your mobile as well as your computer. You can connect, and once you're disconnected, you are disconnected from the internet. And then you can put this, it's a hardware, so you don't have to remember your keys or anything. Ledger Nano also comes with a little notebook, so you can write your keys there. Once you're done, you can put in a locker and go put wherever. That's for something you keep for long term. For short term, day to day, I think MetaMask is getting pretty top out there ranking wise. It supports more and more cryptocurrencies every day. But one thing I would definitely recommend is actually Ledger Nano just coming with it. They just launched a new one out there, and it's green. It's amazing. I supposed to get in March, but that's going to be a next generation technology, including your biometric and stuff. Hopefully,
thank you for that, gentlemen. And I guess a question on building on the whole healthcare implications here as well and impact. If I want to own but really protect my medical records and keep them confidential, do you see those medical records also being stored on a physical digital wallet, if you will?
Let me be clear. Be clear. Those hardware wallets don't store anything other than your private keys. They're just your gateway into the blockchain.
Right.
Period.
Yep.
So I guess the question again being, how do I leverage this to protect my medical records, right? Because of privacy.
Right now, I mean, that's still the combined hardware wallets along with that. It's still, I just got to say, it's not there yet. In a couple of years, it might be, but those hardware wallets. I mean, just going back to what Manisha's saying, you give you a little booklet. Keep in mind that piece of paper can burn, and that if he loses that private keys for any wallet, there's not a human being or an organization on the planet that can get it back for you. Period. That's the only problem about this. It's ultra secure, but on the other side, you can't really, it's because it's so secure, you can't get your stuff back. So you got to treat that with ultimate care. So what I do is I get titanium plates. They make these crypto titanium plates where you can actually stamp them on titanium. You seal them together with a, like a holographic sticker, and you put it in a safety deposit box. You treat that like your bar of gold. That is your key. If you even lose the hardware wallet, you can restore it back. And that's the processes I, train people to do so they don't wind up having that uh-oh day.
Yeah, so yeah, agree. And back to your card, and to answer your question, we are actually building a wallet. Obviously, it's not a hardware wallet, it's just app for the patient healthcare records, right? And the way it will work is when you go to, and by the way, this is being launched in Bermuda for the whole country next week or two, where they can put all their patients there. It has to work with the healthcare systems and the governments, whoever is involved. So once your data, your whole healthcare data is on the chain, which is on a blockchain, and this wallet gives you the access and UI to look at it, then our idea is and we are, by the way, as a part of the Buob advisor, I'm in a company called MPAs, which signed a deal with a state in India. We are putting 100 million NFTs, and they will give access to the 100 million patients' healthcare records to the individuals. Now, wherever they go, they can go and share their record. So this is coming. This part is coming, that where patients will be owning their own data, and then systems like you go to a healthcare, they will have a place where they can scan your NFT to whatever data access they want and whatever you want to give. But here's the extra point here. For certain patients, if they have rare disease and all that, and they want to give access to their data for the pharma companies for doing whatever, they can actually get a reward back in terms of digital currencies and tokens. So that's where this industry is going. That's where we are. I've been working on this for almost 2 years now, part of this being a advisor / interim CTO on this MPAs.
I think Mahesh, that particular topic in of itself is a whole nother webinar in of itself.
Exactly.
So I think it's probably Dean and everyone else from the team here. Maybe we should organize something like that coming up.
Charles,
sure, definitely.
Can I add a comment when you asked about how do you again get a wallet, right? I'd say again, to me it's about being frictionless, and we're showing like these hardware wallets. I mean, that's not, again, it's not trivial, right, to set those up. And like you said, if you lose your seed phrase or your kind of quote password, right, you can't recover that. So I think that process needs to get a lot easier to get adoption, because today I can tell you, I'm in this space, and I have friends that are in this space. I'd say more don't have true kind of hardware or cold wallets. Most just have stuff on a crypto exchange like Coinbase, or they use like MetaMask, and there's several of those wallets. But that also, caution too, there's a lot of people trying to scam, right? You see it all the time, right? If you're on kind of Reddit and you see, follow some of the crypto subreddits, just how many people are getting so easily scammed by folks saying, hey, if you give me your address or send something here, right, I'll give you this much crypto back, right? It's just so many people are falling for it, right? Similar to some of the email scams that happened today.
I want to just jump in there, if you don't mind, for 1 second, because I think this is an important aspect. Is there's a lot of there's things called malicious smart contracts out there now, if you guys haven't heard of them. And if you connect to that malicious smart contract, they're draining your wallet no matter what you do. And if you add more to it, it will happen. I've already helped with this. So you got to be careful. What I would recommend is creating a burner wallet. Have one wallet that interacts with the world, and then move all your valuables off of that into another wallet. It could be a hardware or a non-hardware wallet. It protects you, and it provides a layer. that you don't have to worry about. If you do get, you probably will get compromised. It's almost like think about antivirus for the blockchain. It's starting to get to that point now where you're having malicious things where you'll have a cool NFT project show up that one day. All of a sudden, 5 hacked versions of that show up. You connect to the wrong one. Next thing you know, that happens. I've already seen 3 or 4 people that I know that I've helped that lost hundreds of thousands of dollars by doing that.
I think, by the way, folks, we have 4 minutes left here in terms of timing, and I think we could probably go for another hour. But there's a theme here on, I think people and the experts in the industry, building more awareness for the average user on how to use this new technology. It's coming to us. Right. I guess I wanted to have everyone just respond for about a couple of seconds on what's your thought on how education, universities, colleges are preparing our students for all of this, right? From being able to develop and code into this type of technology to just being able to be aware of how to protect themselves and create solutions and the roles they can play in this industry. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah.
You want to on that, okay. or Shell? Shell, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. So I think you can't PowerPoint this, right? And you can't put it in a textbook. You have to do it, right? You don't learn to bicycle by reading a book, right? So if you're a small company, medium, large, you have to put up a sandbox where you can play and test. And I think Mike talked about this earlier. You have to spin up a digital factory if you're a bigger outfit. If you don't have those internal resources, then leverage, your ecosystem, remote studios, local studios, ask us, right? And then test with employees. I think that's one of the best examples. So I think you just have to do it. It doesn't matter if you're in college or small, medium, large, or even a creator on your own in the gig economy. And then lastly, what I think Philadelphia should do, or we should do, is announce a head of Web3 or head of Metaverse or maybe digital twins, and because I think doing that will bring more talent and excitement to our city and help bridge the digital divide in the process and help humanize the complex set of technology.
Yeah, yet another webinar in of itself, Shell.
Yeah, all right.
I jump in there real quickly because we work with a lot of local colleges and we do capstone projects. If you guys haven't heard of them, it's usually a combination of a company working with the local college, and creating a project. And if you're interested in getting in a blockchain space, I'd highly recommend it. We just, completed one project with Lehigh University. Lehigh University is working with some very large players like IBM and Accenture. And I was just at their talent thing when we presented our thing. There was over 1,000 people there. It was a really big event. And they're a local college here that's really doing some big things in the blockchain space. This was all blockchain. That's all this whole thing is blockchain. And, IBM was demonstrating their supply chain thing and, all this and stuff. It was an eye opener for anybody that doesn't think that this space is this kind of like, hey, it's kind of a cool fad. It's here. And it's really
and I just wonder to what extent the universities are embedding this in their curriculum enough already, right?
They're starting to. They're starting to.
Yeah. So I think most of
Mahesh, if you don't mind, we do only have 5 minutes left here till 10 o'clock, and we do have a question from Megan in the chat. If everyone could look at that. How soul-bound NFTs support KYC and AML requirements for financial services companies? Any suggestions for use cases?
Well,
any thoughts on that?
Well, who's soul-bound? I'm not sure who they are.
I'm not sure I do either.
Yeah, because KYC and AML, that's just anti-money laundering. KYCs know your customer. So basically, when you kind of sign up for like Coinbase, you're going to go through a KYC. They're going to ask you for your license, a picture of you holding today's date and signing your phone number, doing everything they can to make sure they can avoid any fraud or make sure that you're absolutely that person. I would assume something like that project would hopefully support some of the standards that are already out there. This is a well-defined area that's been in place for quite a while already.
Cool. Hey, folks. Again, I think this is a very important topic. I think there's off of this all types of subtopics and sub-webinars we could create on this. But we do have to go back to thanking our sponsors for this. And I want to also make sure that Dean had the last words for this. Dean, are you there?
So Dean actually had to hop off
okay.
a different meeting. But yes, thank you so much to our panel. Thank you, Charlton, for moderating, and you all for sharing your time and expertise with us today. It was a great conversation. And then I also just wanted to thank our sponsors again. My slideshow will work. So Amtech, Boomi, Comcast Business, Mindcracker, RSM, SEI, and Vanguard. Thank you again to our sponsors. And then we do have some upcoming events. Talent Connect will be another virtual event later in February. And then our foundation breakfast, we really want to call attention to, is going to be surrounded around femtech innovations in the region. And that'll be at the Filter Club in Center City. If you want any information on upcoming events, feel free to just scan the QR code on the screen, or feel free to reach out to myself anytime. Heidi is currently out on maternity leave for those that aren't aware, so I'll be filling in for her in the interim. And Charmaina, we also want to introduce, she is our new Director of Member Success. So also please feel free to reach out to her at any point regarding our advisory boards, connections, setting up one-on-one meetings, anything with that. So thank you all for coming, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Brett. And I wanted to actually really thank the PACT organization for all of the good work you do and all of the great topics and events you have. So I've been affiliated somewhat directly and indirectly for a long time. So I wanted to really give my appreciation for that, and the sponsors, of course. But also wanted to really say thank you to Mike, to Shell, to Steve, and Mahesh for your time here. We have 3 CEOs here with us, and they're probably thinking about the last hour and a half and how to go close some business. So thank you again, everyone. Appreciate it.